The latest Democracy Perception Index is out, and get this, globally, more people now actually have a positive view of China than the United States.
Yeah.
Europe is pretty much the only major holdout. I mean, just let that sink in for a second.
It really is a seismic shift, isn't it? We're
Mhm.
talking about a massive survey over 110,000 people across 100 countries.
Right.
So this isn't just a few, disgruntled voices here and there.
Yeah.
It feels like a significant trend.
A real trend, highlighting this, well, noticeable decline in American influence and, at the same time, this upswing for China.
On the world stage, yeah.
And the timing. I mean, wow. With Trump back in the presidency, you sort of have to ask, is this just a blip, tied specifically to his administration? Or are we seeing something more profound changing?
About how the world feels about different ways power works.
Exactly. Different models.
Well, the data does seem to point to some pretty clear reasons for this shift. The support for the U.S. just plummeting, especially in Europe.
Yeah, that was stark.
It seems directly linked to Trump's past comments. The broadsides against the EU.
Turns out maybe insulting your allies isn't the best path to global popularity.
Who knew, right? It's kind of surprising, really.
Shocking, I know. It's like you burn the bridges and then wonder why there are fewer places to cross.
Yeah. But it's not just the personality stuff, is it? The report digs into some serious internal issues for the U.S., too.
Oh, absolutely. That DPI data really underscores the impact of America's own domestic messiness, the divisions, the widespread distrust in government.
And that really concerning number, was it only about half of Americans back in 2023 actually believed they lived in a proper democracy?
Yeah, around half. Which, I mean, that internal doubt, it doesn't exactly project global leadership, does it?
Not really. It's kind of hard to sell a product when your own people are questioning it so openly.
True. Like a flagship phone with terrible reviews back home doesn't look great to international buyers.
And then there's the foreign policy angle.
Right. The unwavering support for Israel during the Gaza conflict, that's unsurprisingly caused some strong reactions, particularly across the Middle East.
Indeed. And if you zoom out a bit, it really highlights this perceived gap, doesn't it, between America's stated democratic ideals and, well, its actions.
How things look on the ground.
Exactly. That strong support for Israel, while it's been consistent policy for a long time, it just clashes with how many people, not just in the Middle East, see the situation now.
Raises questions about whose democracy America is really, prioritizing.
And we can't forget Trump's, let's say, colorful history of diplomatic zingers aimed right at allies.
Oh, yeah. Apparently calling the EU basically a plot to screw over the U.S. isn't, great for international harmony.
Go figure. But what's almost darkly funny, in a way, is that Trump's global unpopularity, according to some metrics, actually outstrips figures like Putin and Xi Jinping.
Seriously?
Yeah. He's even trailing Elon Musk, and Musk's public image hasn't exactly been stellar lately.
Wow. That paints a rather unflattering picture of America's global standing, viewed through its current leader.
It does. It really does.
Ouch. Talk about a popularity contest you definitely don't want to win. And speaking of reputations, Israel now finds itself with the unenviable title of having pretty much the worst global reputation, especially in the Middle East and South Asia.
And even support in Europe is dipping, right?
Yeah.
Because of Gaza and the West Bank situation.
It seems global opinions can pivot faster than a politician caught in a lie.
They certainly can. Okay, so let's flip the scripts. Let's look at China.
China's rise in popularity.
Exactly. The survey shows increasingly warm feelings towards China across Asia, the Middle East, North Africa, Latin America. It's quite widespread.
And this isn't just random, is it? There seems to be a clear driver.
Yes. The Belt and Road Initiative.
Building things, making infrastructure dreams come true, or at least getting them started in developing countries.
It's hard to argue with roads and bridges, isn't it?
Yeah.
Tangible stuff.
Yeah, even if you have some reservations about the fine print or the political system behind it all.
Precisely. And there's this perception, whether it's entirely fair or not, that China just gets things done.
Efficient, decisive.
Right. Which could look pretty appealing compared to the gridlock or perceived corruption in some democratic systems.
And didn't a survey show a huge majority of Chinese citizens felt their country had the right amount of democracy?
Yeah, back in 2022, it was something like 72%, which tells you a lot about their perspective on how governance should work. It's quite different from the standard Western narrative.
It's almost like a less talk, more action vibe, but playing out globally.
Kind of. And let's not forget China's diplomatic style. They aren't exactly famous for, lecturing other countries about human rights or internal politics.
The non-interference approach.
That's a huge draw for nations that are wary of what they see as Western meddling, or maybe hypocritical moralizing.
So China offers an alternative,
Hmm.
a major power focused on economic partnerships, maybe less on the political strings.
It's certainly perceived that way, a more transactional approach. And that resonates with countries tired of conditional aid and political pressure.
Okay, this is where my irony meter just goes off the charts.
Uh-huh. I think I know where you're going.
The U.S., the big exporter of democracy, has like half its own population wondering if they even live in one.
Well, in China, in 2022, you had that staggering 91% figure of citizens believing China was democratic.
The disconnect is just, wow, almost comical if it wasn't so geopolitically significant.
It really highlights how fluid and, frankly, subjective the whole idea of democracy can be, how different cultures interpret it, what they value.
And it's not just the U.S. Confidence is slipping even in Western Europe, right? People seeing flaws in their own systems.
Exactly. It suggests a broader disillusionment, maybe, with how democracy is working or not working across the democratic world right now.
So, okay, the million-dollar question. What does all this mean for the global pecking order?
Well, a less popular U.S. is inevitably going to find it harder to influence things.
Like trade deals, security alliances, climate change stuff.
All of it. It just makes everything harder when your global standing is diminished.
And China's growing influence, that has to reshape things. Alliances, trade.
Absolutely. We can see new power blocks emerging, maybe sidelining the U.S. more, leading towards a more multipolar world, less U.S.-centric anyway.
And this sort of long-term vibe, it could be a bit unsettling, couldn't it? If democracies seem like they can't deliver, can't fix their own problems.
And the appeal of authoritarianism might just creep up. It might look a little less scary, a little more efficient to some.
So this DPI data, it's basically a huge flashing warning sign for democratic nations.
A real wake-up call, yeah. The challenge now is clear. Fix the internal issues, rebuild that public trust in institutions.
And actually prove that democratic government can be effective, tackle the big problems.
It's about demonstrating results, not just, talking about ideals.
It really feels like we're at a fork in the road. China's popularity seems very tied to its economic success, right?
Which, as history tells us, isn't always a smooth or guaranteed ride. And authoritarian systems have their own built-in problems.
Lack of feedback, stifling dissent.
Exactly. Those inherent vulnerabilities. But the pressure is really on the U.S. and other democracies now to, well, get their act together.
Less grandstanding, maybe. More listening.
More listening, definitely. And a real focus on showing, not just telling, that democracy can still deliver for its citizens and be a force for good globally.
The world is watching, basically. Which system really works in the 21st century?
That's the core question.
So these shifts in perception, they aren't just numbers on a page. They could signal a really fundamental change in global power. This data really makes you think about the future of international relations, trade, governance itself. What does it suggest about where things are heading? And maybe more importantly, what could actually reverse or accelerate these trends down the line?
Big questions.
Definitely something to chew on.
That's all for today's Dissent Picks. If you believe in standing up for what's right, please check out our collections at dissentpicks.com, featuring thought-provoking t-shirts, mugs, stickers, and more that amplify your voice. Remember, when power corrupts, resistance becomes duty. Stay informed, stand strong, and we'll see you next time.